look, it's time to bring it in. True Hoops little Zoom quarantine show is back on. There's basketball to talk about. There's a lot going on. It's Fridays with Jarod on Wednesday.
Hey, that alone is weird.
What?
The reason is because epidemiologist Zachary Smith, who I'm excited to sort of review the NBA's return to play, is only available on Friday, and they can't have Friday with Jarod with Zach. So it's here we go. You know what to do, Jarod?
I do. So there is a piece in the Players Tribune by God, a New York City basketball legend, played at Providence, played a little bit in the NBA. Players Tribune is what it is, and Henry and I and other journalists like us, we have issues with it for obvious reasons. But this is one of the most incredible stories I've ever read. And it's just how you tell the story. It's like, wow, this is a story. It's got everything. And being a kid from Brooklyn in the 80s, it connected with me because it drew me in from the minute. Like when he starts with, who gets robbed when I'm like, me, I did. Like that's what happened like in Brooklyn when you were that age. And so you're just in there, and there's so many anecdotal moments that are just like, holy hell. Like the day he realized that his gym teacher was Nate Tiny Archibald. Like, and he was like, what? Like, this is crazy. And how that guy changed his life in terms of, okay, you want to listen to me now that you know who I am? Let me teach you how you're going to have a long pro career. And, the ABCD camp with Kobe, and he kept calling him France. He's like, dude, I'm from Italy, not France. And then he finally was like, stop calling me France. Man, my name is Kobe. And it's like, oh yeah, that Kobe. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever read. And honestly, if you guys haven't read it, it's incredible. One of the lines he talks about after he gets robbed again for a second time as an adult, he says, if I wanted to truly be reborn, I had to let go. And now he's a coach of Dallas Mavericks, works with some tremendous players. I thought it was phenomenal. Please do yourselves a favor. If you haven't, read that story.
I want to read it right now. Can we take a time out? The beginning was so good. Every night, not every night, but many nights I like to put on Fox for about 90 seconds is typically my limit. And just to see this goofy motherfucker called Tucker Carlson say whatever goofy motherfucking shit he says. And of course, one of the more recent things he's done is he's mocking Dr. Joe Biden because of course that's what he does. And so I don't want to go into any more detail on that other than I feel like what's happened in America in the last 4 years is one of the worst things that Trump has kind of inspired are just goofy motherfuckers like this guy, racist, misogynists, frauds, corrupt people, whatever. They're empowered, right? I know this from personal experience as well, as does my daughter. They're more open to exhibiting their whatever terrible things they have to offer than they otherwise were. And we just can't allow it to happen and not speak up. So I think they're going to recede over time. I think they're going to be hiding. They're not going to change their ways, but they're going to be less inspired to be open about their feelings. But when they are, we need to very delicately not choke them or punch them or shoot them or stab them, but just say, shut the fuck up, you idiot, you racist, whatever. The adults are back in control again. So it's just to remind, Trump inspired his people. I want to inspire my people. Call those people goofy motherfuckers like they are and tell them to quiet down. The adults are in charge again.
I'm going to tell a little story. Preseason games are happening, and, it's hard to follow everything. And, you wanted to see who's playing really well. And I have this sort of dumb habit of just looking at the different box scores, even when the game's in session, to kind of see like what magical things are happening, right? Like who's 8-9 or whatever, right? And but I'm realizing that that's a much better approach is exposed by this little story of a David Thorpe and I think I have this right, that we were like, in my head, we were parking in a parking garage in Manhattan in like 2008, I think, fall 2008. And I run into this NBA advanced scout guy that I know, and preseason's happening. And I'm, in my head, I'm like, oh, like, who's looking good, blah, blah. But in David's head, he's like, who's playing the D? Who's playing team defense was his only question. And the guy immediately knew and rattles off that of all the teams he's seen, it's the Lakers. And the Lakers won a championship that year. And like, these two men know what they're talking about, right? There's a lot that could mean exciting things about who's going to have a breakout year or whatever. But the real thing is, who's playing that team defense? And don't worry, I've been pre-grilling David for you on this. The answer is basically nobody, because the training camp hasn't existed this year. We can talk more about it later, but that's what really matters now. That's what you should really be looking for.
We'll pick up on that.
We'll pick up on that.
So I should not be excited by Taylor Horton Tucker's 30-point game. That's not a thing.
Okay. Got a little Kyle Guy mentioned here in the comments.
Kyle Guy hitting game winners. Yeah. Okay, so as we all know, Giannis Antetokounmpo re-signed with the Milwaukee Bucks. 5 years, $228.2 million in Supermax. That averages about $45.6 million per year. Not bad work if one can get it. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but I'm kind of going to be a little bit here, in the sense that, and here's Giannis's post. This is my home. This is my city. I'm blessed to be able to make Milwaukee Bucks my home for the next 5 years. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Look, all he did was do what was prudent and smart, right? And this handshake, that's Giannis with GM John Horst and those tiny hands that you just pointed to right now. And the way he's got them angled, that's some funny stuff right there. Sorry, John. Anyway,
Does John Horst have fingers?
Apparently not. Look, if you have the Supermax available to you in a pandemic and we don't know what's going on with the NBA and salary caps and money, sign your deal. So good for him. But what's happening now is becoming more than it needs to become. Giannis is not like LeBron and KD. He stays, and all that narrative nonsense. As Coach and I talked about before the show starts, all that means is that he signed the money. So this is what any team who has him has to pay him for the next 5 years, period. If things are going bad, he can say, guess what? Get me the hell out of here. You guys don't know what you're doing. So let's not rush to get all excited about the super guy who wants to stay. I'm not saying he's not loyal. All I'm saying is this is no guarantee he's staying here for 5 years.
As Larry David would say, curb your enthusiasm.
Exactly.
Literally why he has a show called that. Dame Lillard, I don't know when he said this, but I saw this tweet. Someone wrote that he tweeted at one point, to look good in front of thousands, you must outwork thousands in front of nobody. And that's a really big thing with me. I'm actually writing about that this week that we may talk about very briefly before we talk to our guest on Friday. But it's something that's very important to me. These guys, I know what kind of work they're putting in to be amazing. And Judy, you can show the second one. Then we saw a picture yesterday of James Harden. And I'm sorry, that he's very, very heavy. I'm just guessing, but there's 30 pounds there, 25 pounds that he needs to lose to be back to being what he was. And this is just a sign. It doesn't mean he won't lose it. He's done this before. He's come to this the camp heavy. Of course, preseason was 8 games back then. Now we literally start games in a week. Week from yesterday. It's hard. It's hard to be an amazing player. It's hard to be super skilled and great shape and everything else. And James is a ways away from that. But that can happen in 2-3 weeks. And so I'm not picking on James Harden. Instead, I am praising what 99% of the world's best players are doing pretty much on a daily basis. A lot of them are vegans now. And they're just doing all the things they need to do to be in the best shape possible. And when they take their eye off it for a couple of weeks, they look like James Harden does right now.
So, Coach, you're saying that I should not, well, not me, but if I was an NBA player, partying, going to Vegas right before training camp, and not a good idea?
Especially during training camp.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
This is pretty exciting. James Wiseman's finally on the court for the Warriors after it's now been reported testing positive for COVID. Look at this. Stephen Curry, excited for him to get some reps and be in a game-long situation. His energy was crazy, like letting a puppy out of the cage. Draymond Green said his energy was through the roof, which took him out of positions at times, which I love to see because you can teach positioning, but you can't teach high energy. He's going to be a sponge. He asked a bunch of questions. James Wiseman says, I was out there talking, giving my full energy to my team. It was crazy, though. The first practice was really crazy, but I learned a lot from my vets. And then Steve Kerr says, Draymond is going to help him dramatically, especially defensively, just with positioning and that sort of thing. It was a perfect snapshot of what we hope to see, what Warriors fans hope to see, and what might be coming. A defensive synergy between those two, Draymond and James, and then an offensive connection without lob. So very exciting to see that happen. I would just say to you that in the minds of fans, every rookie is getting this treatment, and it's total horse crap. Like, veterans don't want rookies to do well. Like the idea that the coach and now we see 2 stars and the player himself are all saying the same things about what the next steps are. I can't remember that ever happening before an NBA team. I'm sure it has, but like this is exceptionally rare stuff. And I think if you're a Warriors fan, you should take a little minute to savor this.
That's good culture, and what Henry would say is about leadership from Steph, right? And what they have there. It's beautiful to see if you can get it.
Let's revisit that too, Henry, because there's a cool thing about Weissman and Nico Mannion, who's also on that team. Let's yeah.
Oh, Coach, I thought about you too. Puppy dog. I'm like, that's what Coach says about rookies. I like puppies.
I like puppies. Exactly right. Exactly right.
So it's happening right now, I believe, that Congress is voting on this potential last stimulus bill. They set themselves a deadline. I think the deadline is now 3 days away to come up with a stimulus bill. Look, the reality of this bill is it is far less than the original CARES Act of 2.2 trillion that came out in March. This one is going to be for somewhere around 900 billion. And the reason why it's less is because the Republicans like Mitch McConnell have no incentive to actually do anything because they got what they wanted in the first stimulus bill in March, which was all the bailout money for the corporations. And now in this current bill, you have protections that protect companies against any kind of lawsuits relating to COVID situations with their most vulnerable people, their employees. Your Amazons, your people like that who have their employees working in hazardous conditions during a pandemic and are like, if so, we don't want to get sued for that because they know if they did, that's major class action. So those things, if they hold up in the bill, which the Democrats will likely cave on, that's what's going to happen. And the actual cash money to citizens is going to be less than what was in the original bill. And all that money in there is really just reallocated funds from the first one because of that 2.2 trillion, almost none of it that was for good works was actually doled out yet, right? So America, folks, this is what is happening day by day by day. The people we put in charge do not give a shit about the most vulnerable part of our population, and it's sad.
Jarod's breaking the rules while making a lecture about breaking the rules.
So true hoopy of him. But we do. They're guidelines, not rules. Let's remember that. So we know our friend Dr. Michael Mina has been talking about this at-home rapid test and everything, and the FDA just approved their first one at home. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it today is I was talking to an NBA player the other day and his wife and my brother, who's a radiologist, and my wife and my parents, and the NBA player and his wife, my brother, who can work from home as a radiologist for now, and myself, we don't need to take the vaccine away from someone else who really needs it. From not just frontline workers and those that are vulnerable, but people who can't work at home like we can. And so, but we'd be great to be able to go out and know that I'm not spreading the virus to someone else. And so for all of us that have the good fortune of not having to work to make our living with dealing with people face to face all the time and put ourselves or them at risk, this is an amazing option. I hope that it's really sold that way, because I'm sure that our government structure has been destroyed by Team Trump. And while it's great that we have vaccines today, there's going to be fuck ups all over the place. It's not going to be cleaned up our way when Biden comes in. And so that rollout for vaccines is going to be problematic to a great degree. And so for those of us that want to go out at least a little bit and not take the vaccine, we should be doing these rapid tests. So I'm looking forward to starting that process.
Greg Popovich said this thing. You remember this back in June? Mm-hmm. He said, I'm quoting here, "In the end, what we have is a fool in place of a president, while the person who really runs the country, Senator Mitch McConnell, destroys the United States for generations to come. McConnell has destroyed and degraded our judicial system. He has tried to destroy healthcare. He's destroyed the environment. He's the master and Trump's the stooge. And what's funny is that Trump doesn't even know it." So, Popovich, I would say to you, just from all my crazy oligarch research and all my going down the rabbit hole of secret money and blah, 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 and don't even get me started. But I generally have the impression that unlike most Trump foes who see Trump as this godfather figure, no. He's the useful idiot, right? There are very deep pockets in the back rooms who have very highly paid employees like Mitch McConnell who do things for them, and Bill Barr. They're very, very good at what they do. And Trump was useful to them for a while, and that period is over. It's not an ideological bind, it's a political and economic convenience, right? So to me, Barr turning on Trump, McConnell turning on Trump, it's just because their job is done, right? Like, I don't see it as like they've had some big split. It's like, no, just like they walked a while together because they had similar missions and they don't anymore. Don't get me started on the rest.
Well,
no,
you
get
made
started on it. I like it.
Analogy, Henry, where like, that reminds you of Godfather 1, right? When Don Corleone is like, he goes, it's Barzini. And Tom's like, you mean Tattaglia? He's like, no. He's like, Tattaglia's a pimp. It was Barzini all along, right? Like that's the real mastermind here.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to make the Godfather metaphor, remember what the cover looked like. That book was in my house growing up.
The marionette strings.
Oh yeah, and it was who was controlling the senators, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that the senators were controlling everybody else, but who was also controlling the senators? That's the whole point, right? And yeah, that's what we're facing.
Rod, when you were talking about your last point there, you're like, oh, I was thinking about stuff. Well, like there are some interests. Like if you want to run for Senate or any political office, you need someone who has so much money at stake that they'll give you enough to run a campaign as like break off a little piece for you, right? And it'll be enough to run your campaign. Like I was like, well, this is really a case of the people need to unite and like become a bigger, more influential voice in this. Like, well, why can't they? I'm like, well, because of that lawsuit. What was that lawsuit called? Citizens United.
Correct. Citizens United.
Irony.
Pay attention, people. Like, right? Like if we band together, that's like what they don't want. It's like, oh, we gotta cut that out of here. That's bad news.
We'll do whatever like the people marching in the streets demand. Like, we'll get all that stuff. It's just like, what will get us there. All right, we should just talk about this James Harden article by Tim McMahon.
Yeah.
Before we do, because that's going to be some heavy stuff, let me just say this. You can leave the Harden stuff up there, Judy. I just was listening to the Golden State game the other day, and I don't know why Nico Mannion speaks Italian, but he does.
I can guess.
Yeah, right. But I don't know if he grew up there as a kid. I mean, he played in Arizona. But he and James Weissman did part of their press conference for the Warriors, Weissman in Mandarin and Mannion in Italian. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
It's basically the We Are the World video.
Yeah, from the American point of view anyway, that's astounding. In Europe, it's no big deal to speak multiple languages. But when there's an American that speaks more than one language, it's like Katie barred the door. Like, what the hell?
Shut it down. Yeah.
Oh, right. So still, I thought it was pretty neat.
That video is hilarious, though, Henry. I'm sure you've seen it, but you know the part of the We Are the World video where Michael Jackson's sandwiched in between like two singers who are like nowhere near his level, and he has this look of disgust on his face, like, what the fuck?
Come on now.
Wait, can I tell a little We Are the World story really fast? So I did in 1993, I was on the Tibetan Studies program of the School for International Training, and we fly to Dharamsala, India, a little town where the Dalai Lama lives.
Yeah.
And we're living with Tibetan families who don't speak any English, and we have not even had our first Tibetan class yet. So we're moving in with complete strangers and can't say a word, which is embarrassing. And I'm just meeting everyone in the group too. Even the Americans on the trip, I don't even know. But it turns out that like this guy Frith and I end up in the same apartment building, and they're kids, like the most delightfully enthusiastic children you've ever met in your life. And my family and his family and their cousins, and they kind of like haul us to see the great view. We're in the Himalayas on the rooftop, and we're like holding children and looking at the Himalayas. You can see for a million miles, and they sing us a song.
We Are the World.
No, they just sing a traditional Tibetan song. Everything they're saying is in Tibetan, and everything we're saying is in English, and it's ridiculous. And then they're like, basically like, you sing us a song. I'm like, I've just met this guy. And we're like, we spend a few minutes against 93. And we're like, what song do we both know the words to? And like, we try for them, and then we're like, eventually, we're like, there comes a time.
Oh, no way.
And we just stand there holding children singing We Are the World. The whole thing, belting it out.
I wish there was cell phone.
I wish there was video of that thing. Oh man.
I'd have gone with Santa Claus coming to town or something.
Just for the record, it was obviously ridiculous in the moment too. Like it wasn't like,
I love that. Okay, so the Harden thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a personal story about it, but lead us into it, Henry, because it's right on with what Tim is sharing.
There's a lot going on in the story, and I'd love to hear your views. The part that really got my attention was like a former Rockets coach. Here's some quotes. You can't get mad at your kid if you let him eat candy every night and then suddenly one night you don't and they throw a tantrum. An ex-Houston assistant coach said, "You're the one who let them eat candy every night." The Rockets turned the organization over to James, and now they have to live with the fallout. There's so much to discuss here, but my first thought was, holy crap, they think he's a child.
Oh, I was offended by that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, the key there is your children.
I know.
At 19 years of age, if I find out my children were doing this kind of stuff, I wouldn't blame myself anymore. They're 19. They can figure it out for themselves a little bit. Come on now. James Harden has to have some responsibility.
He's 31 years old. He's an adult.
Right. He's got kids of his own, I believe. I don't know for sure.
And I guarantee he's better at his job than this person is at their job.
Yeah, come on now.
100% sure.
I will. So my only personal experience that I can talk about, because obviously I've coached a lot of players that know him, whatever, is I went to a game in Houston. And one thing I like to do when I go to games is I get there the minute they'll let the media in to watch players warm up, whether I train the players or not. I'm just trying to see what's going on. And then I like to be, and you guys know this well, in the media room to grab, a salad, whatever, before the game starts. But when everyone else has already found their seat. So all the people in operations and the staff, and I like to sit next to, typically it's women who are administrative workers and just listen. Literally, I'm eavesdropping. I'm spying. I've never written anything about it, whatever. And normally you're not really gaining much of anything. And it's also nice to meet other people that aren't just always involved with the team itself. And I never forget one time things were not going well in Houston. And these women were just killing Harden. Diva this and diva. They called him the diva. They never said his name. I found out a little bit after, charming him a little bit as to who you're talking about here. Is it the lefty shooter? Oh, yeah. It was horrible. And so I talked to some players I had on the team, and because they had their locker room respect, they didn't talk much. It was terrible. And so everything Tim wrote, I know he's right. Absolutely. Tim's right.
Yeah, so I have similar intel, if you want to call it that, as Tim. When the Rockets come to the East Coast and play teams, there are people in the organization who I know fairly well and who I talk to. And yeah, there are a lot of eye rolls and, around things that he does. And I think the question here ultimately that I think, when you have a guy like Harden, and again, to Henry's point, he's definitely better at his job than that assistant coach was at his job for sure. Is it worth it, right? Is it worth giving your franchise over to a star player and letting him literally call the shots and be in charge? Because again, the idea of having structure and being on time to team plans and all that, that's not his bailiwick, right? If you leave that up to an individual person, they're just going to do whatever suits them. I was in late last night from the club or whatever. I don't want to leave at 10 a.m. Let's leave at 2 instead. Now you got guys sitting on the tarmac for 3 hours waiting for you to show up. That shouldn't be his responsibility. There should be already rules in place about that. But again, when you have that kind of singular talent, what is the balance you draw? And I think it comes down to, if you have a strong enough culture and organization, you don't have this kind of problem. And I think what we see around the league is not many teams have a good enough culture and organization to withstand the whims of a star player and have the organization run the way they want it to run. It's a tough, incompatible thing with many, many places. And that's what you're seeing in Houston.
So I see there are a lot of, I could talk about this topic all day. This is the essential conundrum of the NBA, right? Is like building culture around superstars. You have to have the superstars, and then what do you do around them? It's tricky. I know that Daryl's a very analytical thinker. I don't think that's breaking any news. So to me, like, and one of the things that he's talked about many times, having been to a lot of Sloan conferences, is the max contract, right? So James Harden, when they first got him, I'm guessing he made something in the 20s, millions of dollars a year, and was probably worth, 50, 60, 70. That difference is the problem, right? So if they were allowed to pay him 70, they can tell him to be on time and they can leave without him, right? But he's so much surplus value that, like, now, according to the stories here, like, he kind of, like, Harden's moods brought Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook in and out of the organization. Those two transactions fucked the team forever. So, like, whatever his extra value forever has been, it's now undermined completely. This is why Harden wants out, is because Daryl let Harden ruin the franchise, right? This is why Daryl's gone, right? Like they'd all be winning championships together if he didn't let him ruin it. So to me, like, I think about Steve Shenbaum, who's been on the show. When I was a manager at ESPN, and there were a lot of young, talented people who were worried about their path to more influence and bigger voices. Steve was like, tell them they can earn the right to be heard. So you get good at one thing, you get to do a little more. Like if Harden had been on this track, where it's like, you want to be basically the GM, James Harden, like, okay, like next skill set is this and this. We're gonna just get you good at stuff. We're gonna get you good at talking to the team, whatever your dreams are. We're gonna give you a chance of success at all those things. Not like, yeah, sure, you can be in charge of departure times. Man, why don't we hand that one over to you just because you can get it, right? Like it just doesn't work for everybody. It's just a short-term lack of vision to me. And so yeah, it just like it was about math. It was just short math. And like if you were to longer math, you'd give him a path to, become Damian Lillard, who we're just gonna throw him out as the child is.
Well, I don't know if I've ever told this on the show. I'm sure I've told this to Henry a few times over the years, but I learned firsthand what it's like to really be a great leader in the NBA. I witnessed it. Luol Deng called me one night. It was after they had just played a game, like second game of the year, home game, and they were making their first road trip after the game because they played the next night on the road. And he called me, he had called me as soon as the game was over, normal from the locker room. Now he calls me like 20 minutes later, and I thought something was wrong, maybe a butt dial, whatever. He's like, Coach, we have a problem. I said, what's up? It might have been like an hour and a half later, whatever. I said, what's up? And he said, Joakim Noah and Aaron Gray just called me. Those fucking dudes didn't realize how bad traffic's going to be because they're rookies coming from our home game to get to the airport. And they just called me. They're going to be super late. And Skiles doesn't fuck around. We will leave them. And I don't want that. I love Joe. Aaron was a second round pick, a big dude. He's like, we need Joe. Lose him. How do I make sure we hold the plane where I don't get yelled at and screamed at, whatever? And I said, I don't know. Let me think about it. I'll call you back. So I really had no answers. He calls me back. And I called him and I said, dude, I'm sorry. I don't know what you should do. He's like, oh, I got it covered. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I figured out what to do. I pulled off on the side of the road right outside the airport. I told Coach Skiles something happened. I'm running late. I've got Joe and Aaron with me. And I called them to say, park where I am. I'll drive us all in. He ain't fucking leaving me.
Wow.
And then the fact that they still sucked only told me how broken the Bulls were, because that's the kind of leader they had in Luol Deng, which is why players love him so much. And then years later, I met Joe, and he was, they never forget shit like that, right? So imagine if James Harden was that way.
Wait, David, really fast. Are we talking like half an hour late? Or
it wasn't bad. They just stopped to get food and were caught in a horrible traffic jam. So it was 30, 40 minutes late. It wasn't 3 hours late, but it wasn't.
I'm just feeling the stress of being. Can you imagine being Luol?
Oh yeah.
And you can probably see the airplane. You're like, oh, come on, guys.
Yep. He said, my agent's going to take my car away. I'm take their car. I'm just going to drive in, and he's not going to leave without me.
Hey, listen,
that's leadership.
Getting to the airport, getting to O'Hare, downtown Chicago. Trust me, like all those NBA cities, like except for like I'm sure like the ones that are like Memphis or whatever. Like it's problematic. You gotta give yourself some time, because I've definitely been like shit. I've been the guy in the airport. Jarod Hector, come to the. Like, I've been that person. Like crap, gonna be late. Like it's just it's bad news.
That's so. But to the point that we're talking about here. In the article, someone's quoted as saying Westbrook came from Oklahoma City and he had run a military type ship. No, nothing against him at all. Russell, they're still doing that now in Oklahoma City, right? This is one of Stam's real strengths. When you talk to people who have played Oklahoma City, they always salute the franchise, always. How they treat their employees, the process. And they've had superstars there, but everyone's made to feel the same. And that's clearly not, I know for a fact it's not what's happening in Houston. And now it's all coming out. But and nothing against our friend Daryl. Let's see what happens in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
How much of it was it Daryl and James Harden? They have two superstars who aren't Luol Deng either, and Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid. Because I like the Sixers. I actually like the roster. And I like what Daryl's done. I like the coach, whatever. Let's just see if the same kind of things happen. We'll know. We'll find out pretty quickly.
And I think you're right there, Coach, because in that article, like Tim said, look, Russ enjoyed the same superstar privileges or similar that Harden does now. Every superstar on an NBA team gets to dictate certain things about how it's just, listen, the highest salesperson at a company gets more perks than bottom of the line do. That's just how it goes. But as you said, Sam has a way in which things are run there. So if the bus is at 10 o'clock or whatever, it's 10 o'clock. It's not 2 p.m. whenever you show up because we're leaving.
Well, but I would argue there's a fluidity that's called humanity, right? That's called decency. We all know the story. We told this when Pat Riley let Kareem bring his dad on the team bus, right? There wasn't anything wrong with that. That's part of just knowing your personnel. That's breathing spirit into your team. So I think Sam Presti has rules. And if they're broken once in a while for a good reason, it's normal to say you get it. But the way James has done it in the past is a different story.
Not going to the club.
Did you feel like I can feel maybe a little racist sports fans reading the story and being like, that's right. Like, you never let the kids make decisions, right?
1,000%, Henry. You know it. 1,000%.
Yeah. And also this is the important application of David's definition of leadership. Like, okay, James Harden, congratulations on working so hard at your game and being so brilliant that you get to make these kinds of decisions. Now you're like George W. Bush after 9/11, where everybody will let you do whatever you want for a hot second, right? Like, what are you going to spend your capital on? Like, if it's personal convenience crap, then you're just not going to have a big imprint, right? Like, if you're going to use it on stuff that just makes you feel like a movie version of a leader, then okay, he's the guy. The plane takes off when you arrive. What a big man, right? However, like, if you use it on David's definition, where leadership is breathing spirit into others, then you win championships. Then everybody loves when you show up. Then you don't have people in the media room talking about the diva, right? Like just use that influence for positive and, reap what you sow.
And I thought he had done that. Go ahead, Jarod.
I was going to say, we talked about with LeBron, right? LeBron gets to do the same thing, but he actually breathes spirits into his guys. So they're okay with LeBron being later. It's fine because we feel like we're part of this. You don't make us feel like we're part of anything here. So we're not down.
Yeah, LeBron doesn't play that game. And Henry mentioned once how he and Wade kind of fell in love because they went to each other's kids' games. And I know I use that. My next door neighbor living over here, his 12-year-old son plays club soccer. I don't need to be best friends with his 12-year-old son. My wife and I 2 weeks ago, we walked a mile because you can. The weather was cold and beautiful to go watch his son play. Why? Because he's our neighbor. And so the other day we needed jumper cables. I didn't mind texting him. It wasn't a text convenience. I've earned that relationship, right? This is what LeBron did with Dwayne Wade. They went to 4 straight finals and won 2 titles. We know what Curry did when he was trying to settle between Durant and Green and their fight a couple years ago. This is what you can do when you're the best player on the team. And I think for a while, Harden was doing that. There was a period of time where I thought he had really kind of figured out, okay, all that matters now is winning. And then when it didn't go well last year, it's like he let it all go. And we'll see. I think he knows what to do. He's going to go somewhere else to do it. Let's see if he hasn't learned. But first, he's got to lose about 25 pounds.
I thought so that picture that you included definitely makes him look heavy. I have to admit, there were some other angles where he looked not quite so heavy to me.
He normally wears a flak thing around him. I think that helps keep his weight in, but I also think he needs it because he takes a freaking beating. So I don't mind that he does it. It also makes him look bulkier. But I've been around players a little bit. I know when I see a little more softness than what normally is the case. And I saw some pictures of him, which is like last year. He's Mozart. He's as good as you're going to get in terms of pure talent. He could use some skills in other areas now if he's going to win.
I mean, that angle just looks like, man, I was partying hard last night.
Did you see where they're calling James Olive Harden?
Yeah, just the line that I put up, the tweet where this guy wrote that he's agreed to continue Philly cheesesteaks, whatever. But he's doing things wrong. He can turn it around. He will. I think he's done it before.
Can we briefly talk about, and it's not, James Harden isn't unique in this way, the history of athletes and their ability to play high-level professional sport, party for days on end, come back the next day, and then do it again. I'm like, what? This is insanity. Like, how do you do that? I'm whenever I see that stuff, I'm like, wow.
They're just so they're just so good. Yeah, come. Anyone who listens and watches, when we can start having open gyms and everything, come to my gym some summer and watch the way these guys shoot. And I'm talking about guys that aren't great shooters. Forget about the great ones. That's, I had one player that, in fact, he was the one that Kevin Martin got traded for James Harden, right, to go to Houston. If he didn't make 30 something straight threes, college threes on a regular day, like, he was angry, like something was wrong. And when you rebound for these guys, you don't leave the paint. It's very rare that they miss badly. The really good shooters, right? That's how I evaluate somewhat when someone's taking the next level in their shooting is I don't break a sweat rebounding. I have assistants typically that rebound for me, but I've done my share of rebounding too. And I don't typically leave anywhere because they don't miss by much. It's another level. And then their handle.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what Kyrie does and Durant, as I'm writing about this week a little bit, like a 7-foot guy who dribbles like that. We've never seen that before. Imagine Daryl Dawkins dribbling like that. Because that's what James Wiseman's going to be doing pretty Soon. Anthony Davis can do. He doesn't do it all the time, but he can do it. Bam Adebayo is 6'9". That's Magic size. But Magic couldn't play center like Bam could. He could for a game, but not for a season.
Oh yeah, just for a second, I didn't think you meant Magic Johnson. I thought you meant it was just like a Magic size, and I was kind of excited about that.
Oh no.
He's like, ooh,
Magic size.
Pat Raleigh calls him Buck. There was something else you talked about earlier. Two things. Jarod, so I remember God Sham God. Was his name? He was magical with the ball for sure. But what I forgot, I used to know the move.
So it's you can probably find it on YouTube, Judy. It is like a one-handed like cross that he does where the ball literally like comes like all the way up this way, and the way he like cuts it across his body, and it literally like, I mean, was incredible.
It was the Sham God, and I just don't remember it now because I'm an old man.
It's just, I mean,
it might have been a crossover with one hand. Yeah, that's
it is. He is, it's that one-handed crossover. And
so my question was this: did his name help the legend?
Oh, of course, because with a name like gosh, it's like
gotta deliver.
You got to, or else this is problematic. Like, you're more like, I don't know what. Like,
I can't wait to read this story.
There's a whole New York City thing where like Michael Jordan didn't come from New York City, like Akeem Olajuwon didn't come from New York City, but New York City just loves basketball so much and needs to put some mythology around. Like,
it's the most overrated. The most overrated players every year from New York City. I don't think the city's overrated. I am in love with New York City. I think the players were because of it was easy to hype all these guys. But I would tell you, I've never seen a high school guard like Stephon Marbury.
Well, but let me finish my little point. So
I'm sorry.
Like, to be like, in this world where we're trying to say, like, no, New York is saying to the world, you don't understand. Like, and it's true. Like, God Sham God went to more gyms and schools and playgrounds and waxed everybody than like a similar player from Oklahoma City, right? They don't even have that many gyms in Oklahoma City, right? Like, and so like he really did. There is a case of by the time he's like a fringe NBA player, it is true that you don't understand. Like, he is a guy who has solved a million Rubik's cubes of basketball, right? And it isn't all like Lloyd Pierce. Like, his whole narrative is not truly encapsulated in his like being a backup with the Spurs, right? So I think when you're trying to get across this, like, you don't understand it, being called God.
Yeah.
It's just like,
but that time period though, Coach, that area, we had some really, really good, and in New York City, right? Like, it's about point guards and like the flash and the handle, right? That's a big thing because that's how you earned your spot onto the court, how you're gonna stay, and it's getting the crowd to all go, oh, and like, right, that's part of the mythology. But it was him. It was Marbury. It was Shaheen Holloway. All these guys, like
Felipe Lopez. Yeah.
Yes, they were incredible. All like playing against each other. Like,
Lamar Odom
games were I mean, Biggie Smalls and these guys are going to these high school games. Like, it's are incredible. So
Sebastian Telfair obviously was.
That helped build the legend of these people.
But to me, having coached against some of those guys when they were in high school, Marbury was the best and the exception. They were all a little bit built more on style than substance, kind of like LaMelo Ball, not to that extreme. Marbury was the opposite. Yeah. Marbury was a fucking killer. He was a powerful beast of a point guard that was built like a man I had coached when he was 17 and understood how to play. His pace was, he played like a pro when he was 17. Mm-hmm. Definitely a one and done talent. Right out of high school, he should go on right to the pros. He had a pro game. Now, he had other issues that probably dragged him down, but he was not built on flash. He was a fundamental monster. I was blown away. Now, I ended up having to talk to him some because he wasn't having a good time, whatever, with his coach. So they asked me to talk to him. And he the hype had affected him. But on the court, like if every player played like that, they would have won more games because he was.
I felt a little defensive of New York. Like, so I hear you with the word hype, David, but like live in New York City for a decade. And then to me, like there's like a thing where Donald Trump is famous for a lot of reasons, but a big part of it is the New York Post, right? Yep. Like when Donald Trump's becoming a big name because he's on newsstands with his picture on this cover of it, if you flip it all those years, it was like high school juniors.
Yeah.
It was like Lamar Odom gets in some minor trouble off court or switches schools and the whole 10 million person city is fucking outraged at him. Mm-hmm. Eric Barkley built with the kind of fame that LeBron did in Cleveland, right? Like in Akron, right? Like it was that we talk about the pressure on LeBron. It was on Eric Barkley. Like by the time you're working on your handle, you've made it for a long way from your apartment just to get
for sure. Kenny Anderson, I coached Kenny Anderson. So. And Kenny and I talked about this when he was kind of trying to make a comeback a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't remember where Stevie Francis was from.
I don't think the DMV area, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he was New York City, but I talked to him about it too because he came to me when he was trying to make a comeback. By the way, that guy, he was pretty much done when I got him, and he might have been the single most impressive athlete I ever saw in my life, and he was done.
Yeah,
I can't even imagine what he was like in his prime. I've never seen a guy that moved. All of us were stunned, and he was baked. I'm not sure he played another NBA game. I certainly didn't save his career. He was already done, but what he could do physically was incredible. But yeah, it's listen, all these guys, when I've talked to talent scouts about New York City, it hurts the kids. It's why like today, right now is National Signing Day. All right. So ESPN makes it a big deal. These players make it a big deal who they're signing with. It drives me crazy because it's the worst thing for them. Not that we shouldn't celebrate that they're playing Division I and signing big football scouts, whatever, but we make it seem like they're larger than life. And as I've said before, you don't want the first car you ever drive to be the nicest car you ever drive. Like a lot of these players, they'll never have a more famous day than right now. And it's great. It's great to be seen for sure, but it's also counterproductive as human nature goes, right? And unfortunate. I wish we settle it down because you haven't made anything except for the scholarship.
Yeah.
But for these guys signing for these Power 5 schools, many of them think they're playing the NFL. The very definition of what they're doing now is keeping them from reaching their dream. Because now just
point.
Start.
It's your Lillard quote from 9 by 90.
Yeah. It can't stop now that you've made your scholarship. Yeah. No, because many of your competition they're going to go to lesser schools than where you're going and just outwork you from here.
David, you want to talk about a Bucks play to start the game? I'm excited to know what that's about.
Oh yeah, we should watch this play. So, Judy, let it run a few times. I don't know if you saw this, Jarod, but it's just an example of what is our friend Ben Falk is doing an X and O thing. So if you watch this first play here, you're going to see, if you're not watching it, just listen to my voice. You're going to see what looks like a very tight set of screens. There's only two guys behind three. I think Giannis is running around a screen and Brook Lopez dives in to post up. The Bucks ran a few things like that. The Warriors drew this with Steph Curry. And so, again, the spacing. In fact, if you go, Judy, if you run the second video down, right, this one, It's in transition, and they run some action. They post up Brook again, using Giannis's versatility to kind of draw a gravity. It's not just spread the floor, James Harden, go beat your guy. This is the magic of not just Bud and Milwaukee, but of the better teams. And this is something Henry's been chiming on for a long time. The hero ball is really counterproductive. So the point I'm making, Henry, is this started the game. It was nice, 3 guys setting screens and moving and running and getting easy shot inside. But in the fourth quarter, when defense are at their tiredest, it's spread the floor and ever go one-on-one, and it's a mistake. It's a mistake. These kinds of actions where lots of things are happening and there's read reacts 2 or 3 different positions on the court are much harder to guard.
Yeah.
And so I wish teams would do this late in games when it matters. Sometimes they do. Too often they don't. The Warriors, without Durant, I think will do it more now that they're back to being hopefully good again.
That's interesting that you bring that up, Coach, because I always wonder about that. Is it a chicken and egg situation? And what I mean is it because that's just what we've always done in the NBA? Fourth quarter means ISO time, whatever, or is it because both sides are tired? Offensively, you're tired and you're like, I can't think about what other cuts I'm supposed to make. And defensively, it's like, dude, I just gotta stay on my man. Like, why don't teams do that late in games?
I think the answer is they're minimizing risk. So by not doing much, you're not going to get an illegal screen because no one's sending a screen, or just one person sending a screen on the ball. You're not likely to make a passing turnover because the guy dribbling ain't going to pass it unless someone's wide open because 3 guys come guard him. And so at worst, we're just going to miss the shot that my best player is going to be shooting. I wish they would worry less about that and take on a little more risk, because I think the reward is going to be greater.
Jim Boylan told me once, basically, like, nobody, like, if I'm paraphrasing, but basically, like, if Kobe misses the shot, then everybody's fine with it. You lose the game, everybody understands. You can win them all. Nobody gets in trouble. But if Derek Fisher misses the shot,
Someone's getting fired.
Then the coach is storming in and saying, "Why do we pay Kobe Bryant all this money?" And it's the coach on the line. I think it's sad how much that is what happens.
Right. It's the same reason why the NFL teams who are down 20. I don't watch the NFL anymore, but they're down 20 points with 4 minutes to go, and the ball is on their own 15-yard line, and it's 4th and 4, and they punt. Like, really? Like, you have 1% chance to win at best if you go for it. 0% chance if you don't. Right. Take the 1%. Who cares what happens? But they just can't do it.
It's testosterone has a social cohesion component. Like, these high testosterone people are not individual warriors. They want everyone to look. I want to look right and left. Everybody like, good job, buddy. Like,
and it's interesting, Coach, because as you always say, screens are set to make the defense think. Well, hell, if they're freaking exhausted, they're definitely going to make mistakes on defense.
For sure.
You just made Coach's day, Jarod.
They're going to make a ton of mistakes.
That's UB Brown's line, not mine. But yeah, that is. I just think they'd be more effective. And when I talk to young coaches, including guys that are pro coaches now, you have to have courage to stick with what is the right play and deal with the result. And you know what? I'm in the media. We have a partnership in a media company with these fine people. If you can come up to us after a game in your press conference and say, the reason why our 7th best player missed the shot to win the game is because A, he's actually one of our better shooters, and B, we ran a play that we thought would really work more than if we just put the ball in our all-stars' hands and said, okay, defense, here we come. James Harden's going to dribble the ball for 11 minutes and then shoot the ball. No, we're going to go with something we thought was better. It just didn't work out. And we would not go crazy about that. Only the idiots would. Right.
I always wonder if you could, you go to the ref and say, like, hey, we're going to foul here. Right. And then, they're much more likely to notice you're going to foul. Right.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could go to the media in advance and, being in the season, be like, hey, we are not doing traditional.
Great point.
Stuff. We're going to try a bunch of stuff and the idea is by the playoffs, we're going to have this together. Right.
Right. And I'm sure the data, it backs it up. So just cite the data.
Huge. Yeah.
Right. Just say, hey, we know in the last 25 years by just giving the ball to our best player and saying, hey, go make a play for us and save us, we know the probability of him scoring that possession is X. And yet we know we run these plays, it's X plus. We're going to run those plays late. And by the way, it also can fuck with your opponent. Okay, what are they going to do now? I always tell coaches, when I know what you're going to do, you're fucking up. Because you're not gonna know what I'm gonna do. I promise you that. I've got in the systems I've built, and I still help a lot of young coaches with their offense. Caleb is one of them. I've given Caleb all my offensive, defensive audibles and calls. I've got dummy calls all over the place, and so I'll use a dummy call that has no meaning. My team has no meaning, knows it has no meaning, but the other team's coach doesn't know. And I've talked to those coaches after the games. In some cases, those are also people that I've helped, who, for whatever reason, I was coaching against them, and they'll say, Coach Thorpe, you drove me crazy with this call. And I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, dude, half those were dummy calls. Why were you even worried what I was saying? Watch what's happening on the court. But that's the idea, right? That's the covert action stuff.
Well, that's where you can drive value, right? This is the problem with the hero balls, where the coach is like, I can't help. We'll just get that guy to do the work. It's like, what the fuck are you? Why do we have you? What do you do here?
That's exactly. I had an owner offer me a job and literally say that, like, if you just did player development, then you're already better off than a lot of these other guys that I'm watching coach against my team, because my guys they're not doing that, and they're not player developing either. Yeah.
Witness Lola just licking.
Oh yeah, she's having a good time over there, Cora. I see her. I'm like,
I didn't even see it.
So I wrote the story about Hero Ball a decade ago, and the little interstitial things were quotes from The Art of War. And when you hear The Art of War, you think that it's like about violence, but so much of that book is about just like long supply lines.
Yes.
And like it's very pragmatic stuff. But the big key quote is attack where the enemy isn't.
Right? Yes.
Like it's like, if you're getting a double team guy shot, like, you guys aren't going to score.
Yeah. We always say there's a reason why you're open.
Yeah.
Right? Defenses is doing a good job of keeping out what you're trying to do. So your job as a coach then is, well, let me put people in the game that if they leave open can actually make them pay for it. Yeah. Right? Because defense are trying to take away. Yeah, I watched Zion play the other night, and he's a magician. He's amazing, and he's super fast and quick, and he needs to lose a lot of weight, I think, but he's amazing still. But he wants to start left, and he definitely wants to finish left. Tyreek Evans was the same way with his right hand. Defenses should be super focused on overplaying severely Zion's left hand. And if they do that, it's going to be a problem for him. If they don't do that, he's going to continue to score. He's going to score an outrageous amount of points this year. But I do think they're going to get wise to it and make him do something different. He'll get better because of it. He'll get better because of it. This is what bothers us about the NBA is the hero ball is not working because they all know what's coming. And everyone knows what a tendency of a player is. And so you should be evolving past that. And we're not seeing that enough.
Read those scouting reports, people.
Do you have Peyton Pritchard feelings?
No, I will lead up and tell us, and then I will.
I don't know much about Peyton Pritchard. He's a white guy from Oregon, so like I noticed him, but he played very well in his first preseason game.
He did.
And then I saw that he won they're still doing the Tommy Ward, whatever.
Tommy points, yeah.
Tom Hansen isn't with us anymore. Undoubtedly he's worked really hard. Undoubtedly he's earned everything coming his way. I'm excited to watch him succeed. But when this kind of stuff happens, it makes me a little nervous. People get a little overexcited. And I just couldn't help but notice Jeff Teague was 7 for 9 with 18 points. And I don't think no one even said his name. Peyton was 6 of 10 with 16 points. So I would just point out every single number worse. And this is where racists have done a lot to America, right? And they've infiltrated so many corners. And even here, I want to be like, great job, rookie. But part of me is like, am I joining a crowd that's a little racist and just loving Peyton for being a white guy?
Listen, you can definitely celebrate him because we know what your intentions are. But there are people who are legitimately bad faith actors out here, right? Who are literally only tuning in to see when a white guy from Oregon does well to be like, see? This is what we're saying, right? Plays the right way and all the freaking things that drive me nuts and little things. But no, celebrate it but let's not make it more than what it is, right? When Matthew Dellavedova became a thing, and it's like, all right, guys, are we being serious right now? What are we doing?
But then and at some point, a guy like me ends up with a microphone with Jeff T right here. Right. And and he's already not Jeff Teague in particular, but it's a common experience to be like, nah, I know what you guys like. I know what the deal is. Like, you want fucking Peyton Pritchard, right? Like, it's like I feel it. Like I feel it. I'm just like, no, I don't. I don't want to give Jeff Teague the impression that I think that Peyton Pritchard was the best player in the game by far.
It's narrative, and we have to fit into these storylines, right? It's like, oh my God, the poor unathletic white guy who's not good at anything. Look at him triumph. It's like, he's in the fucking NBA. Like, he's pretty good at basketball, I would imagine. Like, let's not get out of control here.
I don't want to be a jerk to this, and I hear what you're saying. Henry, you and I talked this a little bit yesterday. I would just only add that I don't think many of them, luckily, the person that Jarod was describing, I don't think that's the average NBA fan anymore. Because, as an example, have you ever seen Brad Wanamaker play?
Yeah.
He is an unexciting dude, but he was really good in Boston last year. Now, we'll see. Wait, where'd he go? I just went blank on
Warriors.
Is he with the Warriors? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they need him. They really need him to be as good as he was in Boston last year. I think sometimes we also like underdogs, and white or black, if you're not athletic, you're an underdog. Brad Wanamaker ain't winning no dunk contests.
But David, we don't want to honestly go look at the social media reaction. Like, there's a bunch of Barstool guys.
I completely agree.
We cannot say racism isn't real. Like, a bunch of racist fans are loving this. Like,
it's funny. I didn't even know Barstool until yesterday when Tucker Carlson was beating up on Dr. Joe Biden, whatever, and then he had this Barstool Sports guy. I said to my wife afterwards, I said, do our son ever pay attention to Barstool Sports? Because they're dead to me now. I never really paid attention before, but now they're officially dead to me. So yeah, I hear you. They're out there for sure. I just don't think the majority. Yeah. They're definitely out there. Yeah.
Barstool is, Henry knows
what is that all about?
Fastest growing media.
They
have sycophants by the millions. And it ain't small. They're a loud majority out here.
Really?
I do have a basketball question for us in our last few minutes.
Okay.
I feel like there's some down talk on the Warriors from people like, oh no, I may not make the playoffs. And I'm like, okay, I know Clay's gone. And I know that, we're not sure what Wiggins or Oubre could be. I mean, you still got Steph Curry, right? So I imagine if he is MVP level, they're a 6 seed, right? Like they should be good enough to get the 6 seed. I don't know. I feel people are like, no, they may only make the play-in. They're not that good. I'm like,
Draymond hasn't played yet, right?
No.
Weissman hasn't played yet.
Nope.
So those guys will be pretty important, I think. And Wanamaker is a solid player. I've liked what I've seen from Oubre. He's kind of the free throw line. I happen to think Steve Curry is terrific. Curry's Curry. I have him in the playoffs. Yeah, I think. They got to get Pascal's got to be good. Looney has not been impressive, and I love Looney. He's not been good. He's shooting threes though. He hasn't made them. He's not made them yet. But he's shooting them. They need that, but I'm telling you, Weissman guys.
Hollinger wrote a story about last year's Blazers, which was very important in that, and he's written this 100 times about 100 teams. But when you have to play bad players, you're way worse than if you just play okay players, right? Like, they might be a team that has to play bad players, in which case they're probably screwed. But so to me, it matters. I noticed Marquise Chris had a pretty strong performance in their first game.
And made a three, I think, or two of them. Which is
so
good.
To me, if that bottom of that roster, bottom of the rotation is solid, then they maybe could be really good. But if they are actually last year, they played a ton of just terrible players.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if they have to do that, then it's going to be a real.
And have you seen Draymond? Have you seen what he looks like physically?
No, yeah.
That was Peloton's going to sell a lot.
What was that, Henry?
They were saying someone took a picture of him, Sam Esfandiari. How do you say his name?
You got it.
He's basically this is going to sell a lot of Pelotons. The idea being that he's been in quarantine riding his bike and he looks super lean.
He's the bizarro James Harden right now. That dude, let's go. If that's what he looks like. And I think the point of the lob to Weissman that Kerr was making is this cat can really pass. And now we got a guy that can really jump high and he's already 7'1", okay? With a long-ass wingspan. So, that's going to unlock a part of Draymond Green that we haven't seen in a couple of years, right? That's exciting. And then the other point, which I think is brilliant that Kerr made, is There are a few players in the NBA. Kevin Garnett was one. Draymond's definitely one that impact everyone defensively. They are the anchors defensively. If you listen to these games now that you can, their voices never stop. He is going to be moving James Wiseman around that chessboard on the fly, and it's going to make a difference. They can do it better than a coach can during a game. And watch how fast James improves defensively because of Draymond. Yeah, that's exciting for them.
That's what I'm watching, the defense and how good the culture makes Andrew Wiggins, if at all.
Yeah, right. No, you're exactly right.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, guys. See you on Friday.